Hello and welcome back to the Cannabis Lumberjack, where I believe I've found the problem with this thing oiling. Oiling all over the place. This is the Jonsered 625 dose. And what I found was the oiler was working great. It was really pumping out, right? But it was going all over the place, everywhere it wasn't supposed to go. So come on, find my stuff. There we go. All right, so I've got multiple chassis of the 2 series chainsaws, and they seem, for the most part, to all take the same, not all of them, but a lot of them take the same back plate for the chain adjustment area, whatever you want to call it. And quite often, they're missing. You get an old scrap one and something happens, either it's beat up, it's all bent and nasty, or it's just downright missing. And so I bought a bunch of these Chinese pop-offs, repops. So, what you see here, if I can get this one off, is that on these 2 series, they have the vent hole right there. This is your oiler channel. This right here is your adjustment screw channel. And we have the appropriate holes for the oiling channel and for the vent hole. But if I was to push that all the way on there, I don't want to push it all the way, it partially covers up that vent hole. Now, partially is not a bad thing, but what I noticed when looking, trying to diagnose this problem, is that there's a fitting inside that hole. If you take your straight edge, go across it, bam, you hit right on it, which means it's not flush. And if it's not flush, and if this little slot is not in the perfect position, or it's too small, and that little vent fitting can't protrude into that hole, what you find is it leaves your backing plate pushed out slightly. So all of my oil was running out of this channel, not all of it, but a lot of it, was running out of this channel and down into here, and then just spilling out all over the place. So what I did to fix it is I drilled out that slot hole right there. I didn't actually drill it out, I ground it out. So ground that out so that now whenever I go on top of this, right here, we have plenty of room for that little nipple, and we're going around it so that it's not holding the plate out. So, because if the plate can't push flush against this oil valley right here, then it's going to come out like this, and the oil is going to go down underneath this plate. So that was what was causing me problems. Now, I possibly could have fixed the problem by grinding this flush, but I didn't want to do that. It's supposed to have the plate, and I choose to have the plate. It's just these made in China plates need a little bit of extra tweaking. We find that with all of the clone saws. The one that I just recently did for Eric, it was a 372 clone, and the starter, the recoil starter right here, I had to literally push it in and create a slight bend in that recoil housing in order to get all the bolts to line up. And what it did was on the bottom here, you had a little wrinkle that was actually pushing out. Not a big deal if you know what you're doing and you can figure that stuff out. But that's the thing with these clone saws. That's why, number one, they're not recommended. I wouldn't recommend them to a novice mechanic because there are going to be little things like that that you need to be capable of figuring out. All over the place with the clone saws. Now, if you were getting it as a secondary saw or just a saw to play with, they're perfect because it has all of these little screw-ups that will make you a better mechanic if you can figure them out. But as a primary saw, no, I don't recommend any of these clone saws as your primary saw unless you're just a homeowner that cuts wood twice a year, something like that. But the realities of those clone saws are that you have to be able to figure out some shit. So if you don't have the time for that, or if you don't have any desire for that, right, then stay away from the clone saws because they're full of little things like that. So, great to learn on. If you wanted to go that route and get one and figure it out and learn on it. Not so great if you need that saw. If you need that saw. Now, I know that some people have stories, different stories where they don't have any issues. Like the biggest issues so far that I've had with the Weimars is, little thing like I was leaking oil on the first Weimars. I was leaking oil so much that I thought that there was a real problem. Turns out, no, you just needed to really tighten up that oil cap. And then the impulse line came off of it, just came off because after a while getting warm, it just wasn't a real snug fit. So I pushed it back in place and I twist wired it on so that it wouldn't pop off anymore. And now this Weimars, I got that Zach, you keep asking me, boy, you like the Weimars, bro. You had an eagle eye in one of my videos and you saw that it was broken. You're right, it's broken. The recoil starter is broken. Why is it broken? Because I was trying to do a video that would show you guys how to go from an easy pull recoil starter to a regular conventional setup. And well, the long short of that story is you can't. What you'd have to do is you would have to replace the entire recoil starter, right? The cover and everything. And I didn't want to do that because I like the color scheme on that. And I couldn't find a recoil starter without the easy start in gray. Actually, I couldn't find anything in gray. So I tried to just get the regular pulley and use it. And in that process, I broke my recoil spring. And it was really soft, It's spring steel. And long short of it is I broke that spring. So I got a new one on order. And I'll do a video about that whenever I get it in the mail. But for you guys that are looking for these Chinese clone parts, eBay. And the confusion is real. I experienced it too, but you learn how to work with the system that you have. And that is, you go on eBay and you look up whatever part it is you need. Let's say it's a coil, and you just put in 52cc Chinese clone coil. Chainsaw, Chinese clone chainsaw coil. Or just put in Chinese clone chainsaw coil and it'll show up and you'll get CC ranges. And you know that if you see 50, 52, 58 CC, right? All three of those things, it's going to be the same clone. You got to look at the part, look at the picture of the part, see if it matches up, and use your best judgment. So anyways, this video took a different turn than I was expecting to go, but it's good, useful information. Anytime you're messing with this Chinese stuff, there are limitations with it. It is not as good as the OEM, right? Prime example is the 372 that I've just built for Eric. Like, the carburetor wouldn't quite hold an adjustment. Makes it seem like it's got an air leak, but it didn't have an air leak. And you're like, well, why is that? Well, that's just the carburetor on those things. They'll work and they'll get you by if you get a good one. You know, if you get a bad one, they won't even work quite right. But if you get a good one, they'll work and they'll get you by, but they won't idle down and smooth out perfectly like a good OEM carburetor will. So anyways, that's enough for this video. And next up, we're going to talk about piston slap.